You're listening to Conflict Radio on the Conflict Radio Network. Greetings, and welcome to Conflict Radio. Today is September 8th, 2020, and we're going to be talking to Sysco Murdoch about ghosts and other strange things that go bump in the night. Sysco Murdoch has always been multifaceted in her approach to life. A bartender, a floral designer, wire sculptor, jewelry designer, craftologist, business owner, soldier, empath, sensitive, and producer, host of Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal podcast. None of this taking precedence over being a mom of two sons. These paths have led her through and to multiple experiences with the paranormal, supernatural, and the uncanny. She resides near the Jersey Shore with her dear family, several fur babies, and at least one ghost. Now, you can find her if you search YouTube, Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal podcast. You subscribe to her YouTube channel and check out her podcast. You can also find her on Facebook if you search Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal podcast Gatekeepers. That's the group that you want to join if you want to join her group. So that being said, let's just get right down to the creepy and spooky and scary world of ghosts with Cisco right after this. Welcome back to Conflict Radio. We're with Sysco Murdoch. She is the host of Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal podcast. She joins us today. We're going to talk about ghosts. Cisco, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. I mean, the leaves are changing. I can smell a little fall in the air, and seasons are changing, and I'm ready, man. This is spooky time, and this is my favorite time of year, man.
Awesome. So you consider yourself an expert on ghosts. I was wondering what intrigued you to get into ghosts. What got you into researching them?
Well, first off, I don't consider myself an expert. I consider myself an experiencer and still learning every day. What got me, I just think then the title expert in any of this is it's not a good word to use because there's so many different levels of paranormal, supernatural, and I think we really are honestly just learning. Even if say you have an experience every day, you might be an experiencer. You can tell the experience you had, at least how you perceived it. But as you go on through the years, you might look back and your perception changes on that very experience. And you find out, wow, it might not have been that at all. It might have been this, or, it was for a different reason. And things keep switching. The bullseye keeps moving on this. It's hard to hit a bullseye. And it's all really just theory, thought, and experiences and talking to people. So with me, I started having experiences very young that I could remember. And I wanted to know what was going on. Was I really seeing what I was seeing? Why was I seeing what I was seeing? Just basically what's going on. And then I think like a lot of people that get interested in this, it's either you had an experience you're trying to understand, you're intrigued by it because it's the unknown, and you want to know more about it, or it scares you, and we all like to be a little scared, or you've lost someone and you might not have had an experience, but you want to know that they're okay. So what's on the other side of this? So that intrigues people. And fear. There's that great common denominator. We're all going to pass. Nobody gets out of this alive. And we want to know what's on the other side. So I'd say it's a combination of all those things for me.
Well, I consider that an expert, I guess, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So what was your first experience?
Well, I would say probably not my first experience because I do have fragmented things, but as a young child, that could have been anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The first experience that I would actually say that I recall most of it, and other people were around and involved, was when I was very young. I was about 3, and I was put in my. I lived at that point in time. I was still with my mom and my dad, and I had some sisters at home, and my brother. And this particular day, I was put in for a nap, I guess, in my mom's room because it was on the lower, your mom and dad's room on the lower level. A great big, huge bed seemed to me. And I remember it vividly because she had a chenille bedspread, and the chenille bedspread's got bumps on it. And I can remember something waking me up. I heard a sound, and I remember like sitting up because your face feels funny when you fall asleep on something like that. You always get like the pock marks from the, the impressions from the chenille bedspread on your face. And I was rubbing my face. I heard a crackling, like a popping, crackling sound. And I remember trying to figure out where it was coming from. It was coming from the closet. And my mom had this big, like almost like a walk-in closet would be, and it had shuttered doors with the slats in it. And I was looking towards it, and I could hear it was coming from there, and I couldn't figure out what could be making that sound. And as I'm trying to figure out what's making the sound, there's a light that starts coming under the door, and then slowly through the slats. As it came up, it was pushing through more. So the light beams are coming through the slats, almost like it was growing inside the closet. And as the light's coming through, there's like a sparkling in the lights, like not like glitter, but like just like tiny little popping lights. It was just weird. And the crackling got louder, and then the popping got louder and overtook the crackling sound. And I'm just sitting there rubbing my face, looking at this. Is right in front of me. And this light just keeps pushing out of the closet, coming towards me. And as the light starts really pushing out into the room, the sparkling kind of started coming together and started to manifest a shape. And the shape just slowly starts moving into a shape I could recognize, and it was a face. And as the light's pushing towards me, and this, what's showing in this light is growing, and I can see it more clearly, and it's definitely a face, and it's got brown hair, and his eyes were closed, and it's coming towards me, and it's just a head. Mm-hmm. It cut off about the neck. There was no like blood, like a bloody head or anything. It just disappeared past the neck. And it's getting bigger and bigger and coming towards me and coming towards me. And I'm just sitting on the bed looking at this. Probably my eyes are bigger than saucers, And then it just, once it started getting very clear, it was right in front of me. And then all of a sudden it opened its eyes, and this like, almost like, I say it had red eyes, but it didn't have red eyes. It was like a red light, like an energy of redness was coming out of its eyes. And as soon as it did that, its mouth fell open like it was going to scream. Mm-hmm. But I didn't hear anything. And then I started screaming, and it just kind of moved like it was going to go right at me. And I just fell back on the bed, and it flew over me and disappeared into the wall behind me. And that was my first experience that I can really remember vividly. Now I'm screaming. I mean, just a little kid screaming, oh my God, this thing. Now, as it flew over me, it's got this ponytail. He had brown hair, and he had it back in a ponytail behind its head. And it's flying behind him. So it like hovers over me, and this ponytail was the last thing that goes through the wall. And it was tied back with a red ribbon, not a bow, just like a red ribbon tied. And it was fluttering with the ponytail. And I start screaming. I'm screaming bloody murder. All of a sudden, all these women start busting into the room and, pick me up like, okay, you had a nightmare. It's okay. She had a nightmare. They're talking amongst themselves like I'm not even there. And they pick me up, and they're just, it's okay. It's okay. You had a nightmare, yada, yada. And they carry me off into the living room. Now, this is if that's not profound enough, this is what cinched it for me. Now, they're talking amongst themselves. Take her into the kitchen, get her cookie, calm her down, get her a glass of water. And as I'm being carried toward the kitchen on one sister's hip, I hear my other sister say to my mom, Mom, she's saying red eye, because I just kept saying red eyes, red ribbon, red eyes, red ribbon, red eyes, like I'm losing it, And my sister says to my mom, red eyes, red ribbon, Mom, just like I saw. And even as young as I was, it clicked. She saw it too. She saw it too. And then it was over. You didn't speak about stuff like that. You didn't sit around the dinner table at night and go, so what'd you see today? I had a head come flying at me, and I'd really like to know what's going on. Nobody spoke of it because my father was dead against any nonsense, and he kind of had a heavy hand in that house, and you just didn't stir up anything. And then years later, I found out that many people saw that very same ghost in that house in different ways, sometimes fully manifested in full body apparition, sometimes in little bits, a hand here, a head here, I guess, different things. But it took years for everybody to open up and start talking about that. So that was my first experience. How was that one?
That's pretty creepy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. I think at a very young age, I mean, we weren't very long in that house, but I think that ghost also taught me something else, because throughout different times that I saw him, or you see him walking in the yard, see him just, dissipating as you walk into a room, like you surprised him as much as he surprised you, and he's just like poof, gone, and just dissipate, sometimes slowly, sometimes very quickly. I always got this overwhelming sense of sadness, and longing and fear. And sometimes I'd get the anger first. I'd feel it. So I know I was going to walk in on something because I could feel that anger. And then other times it was just this overwhelming sense of sadness. And I started learning through life that I was also an empath. I'd pick up other people's feelings, living and dead. And that's, can be very daunting too, especially on a child. That's what a lot of people go through. They don't realize that the feelings they're feeling aren't their own. You're picking up stuff around you. And that's very hard to decipher, especially on a young person,
So,
So
so what do you
that's
think they
that.
are?
What? Ghosts?
Ghosts, yeah.
If, again, not an expert, but, you know, I'm going on 50 years in looking for answers in this. And what I'm comfortable in saying is, I believe that if we're talking about a ghost that was human, it is the essence of that human that is has stayed behind for whatever reason. Now, that's a ghost to me. What I consider a spirit, and this is just my own little key of words here, what I consider a spirit is the essence of the human being, that essence that makes you you, that has crossed over and for whatever reason comes back to visit, because there's a definite difference between the two. And that's, like I said, that's just mine. I differentiate. And the reason I say so much ghost is it's kind of like a lingering, somebody that still has earthly burdens, maybe stuck in their death state, what I call their death state, how they died, or the not just the way they died, but their thoughts and what their mind was going through at the time. Their concerns, whatever it may be, and all of that is still with them. All those lower vibrational things, if you know what I mean, on vibrations. Like, you think of this. This is an easy way to put it. You've got fear, greed, jealousy, anger. All those things are very lower vibrational emotions. And then you've got joy, happiness, love. Okay, those are higher vibrating emotions. And you can test that yourself of, how do you feel when you're sad or depressed? And, you're very low feeling. And then you're happy and you're dancing, or you're with somebody you really like, and everything is good, and you're vibrating, on a higher level. And ghosts that are stuck or have, made themselves stuck, or don't understand. They may not even know they're dead. They might just be reliving how they died or something that they were going through right before they died. All that earthly burden is still on them, and it's a lower vibrational thing. But a spirit that's crossed over and gone, whatever it is you go through when we cross over or go into the light or whatever you want to call it, it seems that they go through something that kind of sheds that off. What that is, I can't tell you. They can't tell you, it seems, because the ones that seem to come back and you start asking questions like, that's the last page of the book. You don't get to read that. You have to find that out for yourself. But they do seem to be at a much higher vibration because all they want to come back and talk about is, I love. They care about us and our grief, and don't worry about me. I'm fine. You're doing great. I see what you're doing, and all that kind of stuff. It's all positive things, the ones that have crossed over and come back to communicate. So I know that's a long answer for what you asked me, but it's not a simple subject.
Yeah. So do you think that, like, let's just say, for instance, somebody's using a Ouija board. Are they
Okay.
actually talking to the ghosts themselves that are stuck here, or can they actually communicate with other things that have already crossed over? Or both?
I'd say it's both and a great big question mark. Okay, here's the thing. You pick up the phone and you dial a number. You don't know whose number. You just pick up the phone and you dial a number. And somebody answers. Who are you talking to? They might tell you, hi, is this Joe? Yeah, this is Joe. What do you want?
Yeah.
Is it Joe? Because now, is it possible? Is it possible to communicate with a ghost that's in the room or a ghost that's connected to you or somebody you've called in because you've connected into their energy? Absolutely. I think it absolutely is possible. Yes. And, through a series of questions and communication, could you at least be on a scale from 1 to 10 around an 8 that you're actually talking to that person? You could probably get to an 8. But what if they're just a really good liar? I know human beings that are alive that are really good liars. So, I don't know that that's a definite. Nothing in this is a definite,
Well, yeah, of course.
you know. And I think you could do just as much with a pendulum or, drawing letters on the floor and using a glass. If a ghost or a spirit or an entity wants to communicate with you, absolutely that can happen. But are you talking to that person? That's always a question. Do I think it's absolutely possible? Do I think that I've had visitations from people who were actually absolutely who they were? Yes, I do. I have one that I'm 100%. If I'm going to say I'm 100%, but if I'm wrong, it would be the absolute doozy of a pull. They pulled one over on me because when she came to visit me, she smelled like her. I smelled her before she showed up. She felt like her. The love and the warmth, it started within me before I ever saw her. Now, people would tell you, and many religions do, and I'm not saying anything against those. You're free to believe whatever you want to believe because we're all on our journey, our own personal journey. We may not be ready for certain information, not just on this subject, but other subjects as well. And, to be able to handle information of any kind. So you might not be in your place in your journey to understand, but when you have somebody and you smell them and it's like, my God, that's what her hair smelled like when I hugged her. This is the feeling I have when she's around. If that's a demon, I don't know how anything that evil could come across with that much love. I just don't see how that's possible. Now, could a demon come through and pretend to be somebody else and they just show up and it looks like them and it might say some things that it's pulling out of your head or something that it knows about you, your deepest, darkest secrets? Absolutely, I think that's true. I believe that's true. And but I don't think it could pull off that kind of love. I just don't think they're capable. I think they're capable of all kinds of evil, but love, I don't think they can get close to it. That's just my thought.
Yeah.
That's my own personal theory.
So if you have a ghost in your house, is I've heard stories like, oh well, you can use sage or things like that to ward it out. Does that stuff work?
Yes, but let me use something that's a little closer to the time. Using sage, yes, and multiple cultures have used this, thousands of years, multiple different herbs for many different things. Religions, Catholics use a mixture of herbs when they, do mass and things like that. That's what's in the ball that they're swinging around, that they're burning.
Or incenses too, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. So there is a cleansing um, that is within that herb, and I can't explain. I'm Native American myself, and burning white sage mixed with sage grass or palo, alto wood or anything like that. There's a definite um, thing that the herb itself is doing. Okay, there's a cleansing there, something that they don't like, and it seems to be the more negative the ghost or spirit or entity might be, the more they hate it. And it works on humans too. I've seen many hurt. I actually dated a guy once and he said, "Man, that stuff's awful. I can't be in a room with that." And I'm like, "Now we have a problem. You got to go." Because, but the thing is,
I'm warding you off too, buddy.
yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, you're really that uncomfortable with it? Yeah, it's making me just like, okay, well, maybe we should rethink this, because he was extremely agitated by it. Wasn't he just didn't like the smell? So I'm like, okay, something's up.
Yeah.
But yes, and I totally believe in that. And but it's also your intent and what you put into it as well. There's a ceremony to it, and you also have to believe in it. I've gone in and I've cleansed, many houses. The first thing I ask the person that's their space, the homeowner or the business owner or whatever, that's their space. I have to ask them, where are your beliefs? Do you have any faith beliefs? What are you comfortable with? Because we add that into it. It's not just mine, it's theirs, it's their space. So I think it's movable like that, but it's also maintenance. You can't do it once and that's done. It's a maintenance, it's a process. And it's not just a process of doing it. You're, burning the sage and you put it down and you leave it. There's a way you have to do. You have to open the windows. You have to push it out. You're pushing it out. You're not just running it around the house. But it's also the same as, using smudging is what it's called. So smudging a house to keep it clean is like using hand sanitizer and never washing your hands. It's a temporary thing, and it's a maintenance thing. You have to continue to do it, but you need to do the whole thing. Do I think it works? Yes. Now, you might not get rid of the entity. You might just push him out. Depending on what you're working with, him, ghost, whatever. You might be working with something that was never human, and that's, you better have a little bit more than just sage, because you're just going to make it mad. But there's more to it. But I've seen people use that, and this one guy I was talking to, he said, well, it didn't work because the ghost, instead of showing up in the bedroom, it just showed up outside at the window. I'm like, well, it worked. It didn't say it was going to get rid of it.
Yeah, I guess that.
Yeah, it pushed it out. It wasn't going to come in until everything kind of wore off a little bit. It's going to wait. It's got all the time in the world, and then it's going to pop back in. It's a maintenance thing. You got to keep it up. That makes sense.
And the chalk around the door, I guess.
There's all those things. There's salt. There's, put the salt around it. There's black salt. There's all kinds of different things. And I believe that multiple things have that effect and how you use them. But you're part of that. I mean, if you're going to try to fight something, it's just like anything. If you're going to go into a battle, you better have the right weapons, and you better know what you're fighting. You better know your enemy if that's what you're doing. You can't play it that. I mean, if you're going to just recite a prayer over and over methodically without believing in the words you're saying, you might as well just throw a slipper at it. You know what I mean? But if you're trying to get rid of something that's bothering you, the best thing to do is find out a little bit about what it is so you know what you're fighting. You see what I mean? Or else you could just be just making it worse, you know? And I think that happens a lot. Um, you know, and it doesn't just think about it this way. Ghosts were people too, or are still people, depending on how you look at it, right?
Yeah.
Human beings. How many different people do you know have you met in your lifetime? Many, right? More
Yeah.
than 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Were any of them exactly alike?
Not exactly.
Okay, they had similar things. You know, they might have had, the way they appeared, they walked up on 2 feet or whatever. They had similar features, similar things. They breathed in and out. They probably had, blood running through their veins and stuff like that. But after that, the characteristics of the human beings change. Some are angry, some are just jerks, some are extremely nice. I mean, everybody's got different characteristics. Ghosts don't change because they die. Okay. I don't know if you're allowed to, I'm going to try something here. You can always beep it out. But something I've always liked to say to try to put perspective on the thing. If you were an ass when you were alive, you're going to be an ass soul when you're dead. You know,
An
you don't
ass
change.
soul. I like that.
And you're not just going to, and I don't mean that as disrespectful, but I know a lot of jerks. Now you take that person who didn't deal with life very well. They were angry and grumpy and just, whatever. And then something happens to them and they're not real sure what's going on. So their perspective is a little bit different, okay? They may not even know they're dead. Conflict. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They may not even know they're dead. Some ghosts, it seems, that I've found through all this, there's different categories. We love to put everything in categories because it's easier for us if we take everything, we can kind of put it in a file cabinet. Stephen King loves to use that in his books and a couple of his movies, where in our minds we have these file cabinets and it's just all over the place, and we put all our little memories and our thoughts and our little theories there. Well, when you do that with ghosts, it's like, okay, well, that was a full apparition of a ghost, looked just like the lady that used to live in that house. I saw her in the yard. That's a ghost. It's her. I'm going to put that here. That's the dead lady that lived in that house. I just saw her. That's that ghost. Okay, wait a minute. Now it's going to go into another category of, did you see her? Is she a ghost? Or did you see an emotional time that she was having that put so much emotion and energy in that moment that it's just almost like an imprint of that moment, and she's crossed over. She's got nothing to do with this plane anymore. She's gone. She's doing the next thing. You just maybe saw, and that's what I'd call like a residual. Some people call it a repetitive, ghost. Some people just call it an imprint. So there's all these different categories. So if you're dealing with a human spirit who is passed, that is staying in, say, a house or where they had their car accident, or they're hanging at this bar they really liked and that's where they wanted to stay, you also have to figure, what are they seeing? Not only why are they still here and what do they want? What are they seeing? There was a movie not too long ago. I don't know. It was called The Others. It was very interesting because as you're watching it, you're not
That was a
realizing.
great movie, by the way.
Yeah, you don't realize you're watching it from the perspective of the ghost. Those ghosts well, the main character, she actually thought that people were haunting her house, that the people who lived there were ghosts. She was stuck in her own thing with the kids and the keys and the doors, and her husband kept coming back from the other side to get her to listen, and she was just not having it. She was not understanding what he was saying. I've had experiences like that. I was in a home working with a couple other people, and they were having this, what you would call I think that's so odd when you hear this these days. We're like, oh, we have a ghost. He's a friendly ghost. His name is Harry. He died in a car, whatever, and he's still here. And every once in a while, we see him hanging at the kitchen table. It's no big deal. We live with it. Everything's cool. Okay, hold on. Ghosts aren't pets. You know what I mean? And, a lot of people, you're fine coexisting with that ghost. Well, have you sat down and discussed that with a ghost? Does the where's the ghost choice in this? Does the ghost know it's dead? Does it know it has free will? Does it know it doesn't have to stay? If it's choosing to stay and it's making that conscious decision, cool beans, But if that ghost is stuck and it doesn't know how to communicate with you other than banging on the table or opening cabinets or whatever their energy is doing, sometimes that's just energy burst. You know, it might not be okay with Harry. You know what I mean? And it might not be Harry. It's just like, I love people who go in there and go, oh, that's June. She was a 4-year-old girl and she died of, scarlet fever, and we see her all the time. Let me tell you something. I have walked in with some heavy duty mediums and psychics that have more knowledge and more abilities than I will ever hope to have. And I walk in there with them and we're sitting at the table and I'm going, really? And the owner's like, oh, yeah, she's so cute. And it's so sad that, she died up there in that room and we just put a little doll on the bed for her. And she's just one of the family. Really? Let me tell you something, lady. Sally's crossed over. That's no little girl. And the mediums are like, right, you should see what I'm seeing. Because things have the ability to appear as they wish you to see them. I was actually, it wasn't that house, it was another one where there was a medium, a psychic medium, and a lady who had this just amazing ability, psychometry, to touch things and get pictures. And we were all trying to figure out stuff, what was going on. One of the mediums saw the ghost as a man about in his 25, and he was angry and he was kind of disheveled, but it was a man. The other one, he was projecting to the other one as a young boy. And the other one was just getting this just overwhelming anger and just, hesitate to say evil, but she was getting those kind of vibrations. But all she saw was just this black mass, and it was all the same. It was all the same guy. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So putting these things in file cab, in neat little file things is very hard. And that's why it's also hard to say somebody is an expert, because I don't think you can be in this. Because as soon as you think you've got something, you got that bullseye, the whole thing moves on you. It's one thing. It's like one thing at a time. And then you've got that great question of, are we just seeing something in our minds? And then you could back off and go, we could all be in this like video game and all be avatars, and none of this could be real. So, it's very odd. But I'm very comfortable, like I said in my book, I'm comfortable on saying a couple things. I very rarely say I know. I'll say I think, or at this time, this is my theory, because you like it shifts. But there's some things that I know, and what I know is, and I'm very comfortable with saying that, I think love is the strongest energy in this whole experience we have here in this universe, in this dimension.
Well,
I think that's
it's all about being in the light.
Yeah, I think it's the strongest energy, and I think it lasts forever. I think if you lose someone, whether it be a pet, friend, an acquaintance, somebody that you might have changed their life and have no idea that you touched them, in a way that lasted, that lasts, that goes through, and that lives on. It really does. And it's a connection. You're connected into that energy, and they're connected into yours. And I believe that when you think of a loved one, they think of you too. And in that moment in time, you're connected. Because how many times have you thought of something, like a loved one that's passed, you've thought of them, and then their favorite song comes on the radio, or you walk into a store and their favorite song comes on the music that's playing, and you just get those goosebumpy feelings, and it's almost like, the energy runs through you, and you almost feel like a hug, you know, that's them.
Yeah,
And
that's
yeah,
now. Why can't we be haunted by people that we want to be haunted by? Doesn't that always kind of suck? We always get the ghosts that we don't know, or we, you know, don't
yeah.
want.
Well, I think that's probably true in some cases. I think in others we do get those little um, messages. I mean, how many people that you know of, or maybe yourself, has had what I call a visitation dream? A lot of people do. It's different. The dream is different. It's like more vivid. It's crisper. The colors are brighter. You can smell. Sometimes you can even taste things. And somebody pops in this like crazy dream that you're having, and they just seem to let you know, usually telepathically without moving their mouth. You'll hear a lot of that, where they stand there and you hear their voice, but you're looking at them and they're just smiling or whatever, not in a creepy way, but a loving way. I'm just here to say I'm okay. I'm just here to let that I've passed. It might be somebody miles away that just passed, coming by to say goodbye.
Yeah.
um, I've had that with pets and stuff too. And you wake up and you just know it was more than a dream. And it just leaves you feeling, a little confused and sometimes startled, but usually with a good feeling. So, I think that's part of it. The other part that I find very interesting is something I've just been learning over the past couple of years, is that sometimes we'll see something. Here's an interesting short little story that kind of explains this a little bit. Um, there was a gentleman, he was an actor, and one I really like a lot. And he was staying on location to shoot a movie, shoot a film in a little town. And they put them all up in this hotel. So, anyway, it was an old hotel. So he's in this hotel, and he's a really great dad. And he had a couple little girls and his wife, and he just missed everybody, and he just, talked to them every night. He just wished he could be there. And he was up there for like about 3 months. It got to be long, He really missed his kids and his family. So that was something that was very right in front. His feelings, his emotions, very strong in that area. That's the energy he was giving off. So he keeps getting woke up in the middle of the night, and there's this young girl standing at his bed, and one time over by the window, and then there was like some knocking on the door. He opened it, and then later on he goes back to bed. She's standing next to the bed again, and this kept happening periodically through his stay. It was freaking him out. So about the third or fourth time, he finally mentions it down to the manager at the manager's desk when he was going for a shooting on the film. And he says to them, it explains to the manager, he's like, did anybody ever, it's an old hotel, any little girls or anything like that? Well, the manager jumps right in. He goes, oh, yes, we don't like to mention it. He said, but there was a little girl who lost her life, and she was bouncing a ball down the stairs, like 50 years ago, whatever, and she fell and she broke her neck and she died. And, and it said her name, whatever. And he said that you must have seen her, and, we're sorry for the inconvenience. We can change your room and all that. He was like, no, 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 no. Then he felt bad. Now he feels bad for this little girl. He's a great dad. He misses his kids. He feels bad for the little ghost girl. Who wouldn't? So he moves on, and that's what he went through the next 10 years thinking, that he had seen this little girl that fell down the stairs. Well, he gets with somebody who really knows what they're doing as far as being a medium and a psychic and, the real deal. And they go back through this. And she goes back to the location, and she's talking to him, and she goes, hold on a minute. That little girl's crossed over. I've got her energy. She's crossed over. She's fine. Now let's figure out who you saw. Who he saw was a little girl who had died next door in a building that was, apartments at one time, like kind of a shanty apartments. Well, her and her little brother, who was a little older than her, were living in an apartment, and her parents were drug addicts, and they left the kids alone a lot, and it was cold, and the boy tried to light the stove to keep them warm because the parents hadn't been home for a couple of days, and it caused a fire. And to protect his sister, they hid in the closet, and they died there. This little girl wanted her parents, wanted love, was seeking that kind of protection and that kind of energy. And because she was wandering outside of the building and around wherever they wander, she felt that energy coming from this man and hooked into it, a total stranger. She recognized the emotion. He loved his kids. He missed his kids. He was depressed, and she was depressed. And she hooked into that energy, and she just wanted to be part of it. That's a ghost.
Yeah.
It might not have anything to do with you other than the emotion you're putting out. So when people tell you that like attracts like, that's what they mean. So if you're angry and depressed and putting out a lot of negative stuff, you're gonna draw some negative things. But if you're putting out the other, you're going to draw that. That's very interesting to me.
Now we were talking to a guy on the podcast not too long ago, Doug Van Dorn. He said that demons are the ghosts of the angel human hybrids, the giants. He said the giants are angel human hybrids, and demons are really their ghosts. Now, what do you think about that theory?
Wow, that's a mindful, isn't it?
Yeah. Have you heard that before?
I can't discount that. I can't discount it, and I can't, really add or detract from that. All I can say is it's possible. It's possible.
Have you had any encounters with demons?
Probably. See, it's hard to tell because, like I said, things can manifest. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you. All right, I'll tell you one. You want to hear one? This is probably one of the. I've had a lot of scary things happen to me, but I was. Asking that, it kind of brought it right to the surface. As far as your question on whether I agree with that or disagree, I don't either because I don't know enough about that. I haven't studied that, but I can't disagree with it either because I think there's a lot of things out there we don't understand. I mean, there's ultra dimensional, extra dimensional. You hear that one too. I think those are both really the same. It's like more than one dimension, and I think they can move in and some can move and come and go as they please.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the ghosts of aliens.
Through portals or whatever. It's just all of that. I've had people on battlefields trying to rescue soldiers that have been there 150 years, and he swears to me, 3 people standing there, 6 of them there, but only 3 of them saw it, that there were both demons and entities that fed on the anguish and fear and pain of the soldiers that were going through their loop and just continuing in their death state, just this continuous loop of just repeating how they died over and over again, and they're feeding off of it like vampires, just energy vampires, just sucking in all that grief and anger and death, and they were fighting them to not release and cross these and get their consciousness back of these ghosts so they could understand you don't have to stay here. This is over. The pain can be over. We just need you to focus so we can get you crossed over. And they were fighting them, and aliens were standing with them.
Wow.
So explain that. So once you start realizing and learning things like that, everything is just like, I don't know, it's like anything is possible. So, you know what I mean? You just have to run it through your filters. I had an elder tell me once, we were just talking about, all kinds of things like religion and spirituality and everything else. And he looked at me and said something so simple, but so profound. He said, anything you take in life, first you run it through your mind, your common sense, and then you run it through your heart, and then you do it again. And that's how I approach this subject. If I have somebody standing in front of me that is just energy, they're just energy, and the emotion that's coming off of them is just pure love. I've met angels, met them, and the love and the light. I mean, I can't even. Love doesn't even cover it. The emotion and just the sheer goodness and just ultra joy you feel.
So,
It's
well,
like,
you got to tell us that story.
well, that was multiple. One was when my son was in ICU, and they didn't think he was going to make it. And they don't tell you that on the phone, you know. And so that's a lot for mom to go through. You get your son's been in a car accident, and you got to get on a plane. He's 5 states away, and then you show up. And it's like, okay, all right, get me in the door. Here's my, you have to go through all this stuff to get into the ICU door, past the guards and everything. And as soon as I walked by, took a deep breath, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm not walking in here alone. I have to be prepared for anything. And I mean, just what I went through was just like a complete personal thing. It's not about me. This is not about me. This is not about, I'm not walking in here alone. Whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen. It's my job to get him through. This is his journey. And then I learn from this journey too. And sometimes our journeys converge and you're learning together. I had to be prepared for one or the other. But I had to be prepared that in my world and in my thoughts, we're going to get through this one way or the other. Just what can I do to help? And that's a lot for a mom to do. And I'm walking in there, and I almost felt like my feet weren't hitting the floor. And I just kind of glided in, and I took everything in, and I'm like, okay, I'm here. You touch his hand, you kiss whatever they'll allow you to touch, because he's all bandaged up and broken,
Yeah.
And okay, after first initial shock, give me the rundown. What's going on? What are we dealing with? What's our main triage, the whole situation? Okay. And about the second time, because they try to push you out of the room so they can do their thing, I didn't go far. The whole time I'm saying my prayers. I'm like, okay, what do you need me to do? I'm like, okay, I need help. I need all of his angels. I need all my spirit guides. I need his spirit guides. I need everybody in the room. Let's all communicate here. What are we doing? I mean, that's how I talk to him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mike, come on, I need you, And I'm talking to Archangel Michael. I'm like, man, come on. We've been through all kinds of stuff together. I said, I need you to know me. I'm not going to get him. I'm not going to, you can't prevent something that's supposed to happen. If that's their life choice, this is their life choice. It's a learning process. All this is. But still, it's such an emotional thing for anybody,
Yeah.
And I said, I need you. So right after that, I get to go back in. And after that, I mean, very rarely did I ever leave his side. I slept on the floor under him. And for almost 40 days. So right after that, I got to go in, and the nurse is telling me, she says, he's in a coma. He's probably not going to come out of it it could be days, could be weeks, could be an hour. Brain's a funny thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, yeah. He knows I'm here. People are in a coma. If anybody ever tells you that they can't hear you, I'm going to tell you right now. This is what you remember earlier. I said one of the things I know, some things I think, some things I know. This is one of the no ones. I know it. They hear you. You talk to that person like you would talk to them if they were awake, and you keep talking to them, and you keep loving them. Don't you ever let anybody tell you different. This isn't the only experience I've had with this or other people. So I'm talking to him, and the lady comes in, and she's trying to get a reaction out of him, and she's talking. I said, well, okay, all right, ma'am, I know you're doing your job, but this is my son. First of all, that's not what we call him. We call him this. Use his correct name. What do you want him to do? She says, I'm trying to get him to respond. If I could just get him to squeeze my hand or do something else, it would be good. I said, hold on a minute. I grabbed his hand, and I said, honey, it's mama. Squeeze my hand. He squeezes my hand. I said, there you go. I stopped yelling at my kid. And she laughed. It's okay. The nice one comes in. She says, well, we want to fix him up a little bit. Can you go for about 20 minutes, give him some privacy? I won't leave him. And I said, okay, great. I'm going to go downstairs and make phone calls. I said, hang on a minute. I need to talk to him. This is exactly what I said to him. I grabbed his hand and we squeezed. And I said, it's Mama. I'm here, right? And he tried real hard to smile with the corner of his mouth he still had left. And I said, baby, I said, I'll have to leave this room for about 20 minutes, but I will be back. Don't you for a second think I won't be. I'm not leaving you. And I said, but as I leave, I can feel in this room. I said, all of your spirit guides, mine, everybody that's passed that loves you, they're all here in this room. I can feel the love. Everybody is around you trying to heal you. The rest is up to you. You got to want to live. You got to fight. And I said, but when I leave here, I'm not leaving you alone. I said, I actually made a joke and I said, now, I'm sure 1 or 2 of your spirit guides are probably in a bar somewhere in Jamaica having a real strong drink because they've earned it. But the rest of them are here in this room with us right now. Yeah. And I'm not leaving this room. It's filled with angels. I can feel it. And your loved ones. So I'm going to leave you in their care for a minute. Is that okay? And he tried to smile with the corner of his mouth. He squeezed my hand a little bit. I said, okay. I look up, the nurse has got a tear rolling down her face. And I said, now you take good care of him. I'll be back. I go downstairs, and one of the people that loves him a lot couldn't be there. So they wanted to say, I said, look, it's a beautiful hospital. Here's a picture of the hospital. Here's a picture of the fountain and the beautiful trees. It was July, and the crepe myrtles are blooming. And I said, this is as close as I can get you because I wouldn't take any pictures of them. There was nothing going to be done until he could say it could be done. So I took a picture of his window. And as I take a picture of his window, something falls on my back. It's okay. Weird. Felt like a bug. And I think, okay, well, I'm standing under the crepe myrtle tree, so it's probably one of the buds or one of the flower blooms or something. So, I finished. I took another picture. And I dropped something when I took the picture I had in my hand. And it was a lighter. And I bent down to pick it up. And that's when it hit me. And I stood up and I shook my shirt and something hit the ground. And I look and it's a quarter. And like I said, I talk to my angels and my spirit guides all the time. And I look, guys, man. I said, quarter? I said, because anytime you get a quarter or you get change or something like that, always look at the date. It means something. Especially if it's an odd thing or just, money, pennies from heaven kind of thing. So anyway, that's just one of my things. So I said, if I look down, and I've said this out loud because I'm a crazy person, and I looked down the corner, I said, if that's his birth date, I said, I'm going to pass right out. You're going to have to call 911. I've had enough, And I made a little joke and I laughed and I went to pick it up. And it was cold. And I mean cold. And this is July in Alabama, And I'm like, cold quarter. And I'm like, all right. And I flip it over and I look. It's 1993. His birthday is 1992. And so anyway, I said, well, you guys got it as close as you could. And I laughed. I put it in my pocket. I went upstairs. Now I'm ready to go into ICU. And I'm flicking through the pictures because I'm sending the pictures to the person who couldn't be there. And I look. And the picture that I took when I got hit with the quarter with 1 year from his birth date on it, a beautiful picture of a white light. The sun was going down. It was a completely different spot. There was no lights on. Wasn't any flash on the picture, on the thing. I was 3 floors down. Okay? There was nothing. And it's a perfect picture of what you would think Archangel Michael looks like. With the wings, and behind him, multiple people. I'm like, okay. I'm like, right away. That's the first feeling you get. Always go with the first intuition you get. Don't talk yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Well, I go back inside, and I could just feel everything, just the emotion that was there. It was almost like when you were walking to that room where before it was very cold and very medical feeling and smelling. and everything just smelled like flowers, and it was just not too sweet, just not just right, and just an amazing amount of love. That young man, and I did some things. I did some with a very close person to me, asked her if she'd walk in with me. And I said, listen, he's getting a lot of prayers said for him all around, every religion, from Wicca, pagan, Catholic, synagogue, everywhere is praying for him. Let's gather all that energy and put it right on him. And we did so. We gathered it in his name, and we put those prayers on him. And I said, bring all that energy right here. And I said, you heal this kid. You heal this kid as much as you can. He went from the medical paperwork showed, the doctor that looked and took x-rays on him, in that day, he went from a 15% chance to an 85% chance, and the doctor couldn't understand how it happened. That's love.
And he's okay now?
He's fantastic.
That's awesome.
He's going to run in the Brain Alliance, the Brain Awareness Marathon. It's been 3 years, and they still can't figure out. They still can't figure out how it was healed. Now, why him? I don't know. Faith? I don't know. Love? I don't know. Combination of all those things? I don't know. But I've felt love. I've felt angels, and I got a ride from one once. That was insane.
All right. Well, hey, we're going to take a break here for a minute. When we come back, I want to talk to you about your book. You mentioned it just a second ago. We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife, a guided tour through a haunted life. It's with you and Steve Stockton, correct?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to talk about that in our break. We'll be right back on Conflict Radio right after this. Welcome back to Conflict Radio. We're with Sysco Murdoch. She just sent me a picture of the picture she was describing. And why don't you tell us what we're going to see? Because I'm going to put that on the website, conflictradio.net. If you scroll down right on the homepage, you'll see a link for pictures talked about in shows. Go to the episode number that this is, and you'll be able to see the picture. Why don't you tell us what we're seeing?
Right. Well, the picture, I put it myself in a split because I was on another show and I wanted them to see it. So I took the one picture that you see on the left. It would have filled your whole screen, okay? It wasn't, I did the split. It's two pictures together. So the picture on the left is the bright light, or whatever you want to call it. Could be, an angel, could be a message. Maybe it's just something that my guides or my loved ones wanted me to see to give me hope. I don't know. The picture on the right is where I was standing and how far I had to look up to get the third floor window from outside on the sidewalk by the street. So I did it that way so you could see there's no way at that angle I could have gotten a sun splotch on the window or whatever. And when you look, if you can blow up the picture, if you look at it, you'll see in the window, the only thing that you were getting, there wasn't no glare or anything else. You could almost see in, and that was like the back of his bed and his IVs hanging. So it wasn't anything in there that would have given that kind of reflection. And I didn't use a flash, so
all right.
You tell me.
And just so everybody knows again, you can see that if you go to conflictradio.net and scroll down on the homepage, you'll see a link for pictures talked about in shows. And then when you hit that link, just scroll down to the episode number. It'll be right on the top if you're listening to this recently. So yeah. Let's talk about the book. Your son, he's okay and everything. He's going to be running that marathon, so that's awesome. But I do want to talk about the book a little bit. What is your book about? Pretty much what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, well, it's my experiences. It starts out, explains a little bit about what, where I am, like I told you, as far as, ghosts, the difference between ghosts and spirits, what I feel. Because I just think spirits is a little bit more freer. Ghost to me is something that's kind of stuck in this place. Spirits have moved on. They might come back. They often do. But talks about that, talks about my different experiences, not just with ghosts, but with other things I've seen. And the reason I wrote the book is this. Steve Stockton, who also is in there with me, um, he's a fantastic guy, and he does a lot of uh, other people's stories and legends, and a lot of his own experiences too. And once we met, um, we found out we had a lot of things in common. And one of his things was he had experiences throughout his life too, and he's also an empath, and he's also a sensitive, and he also has the ability to communicate and things like that. Very, similar to mine. And the one thing we really had was when we have conversations, I'll tell a story, and then he has a memory of a story that's similar or other experiences and thoughts on it. So he's the one who pushed me to write the book, because I never wanted to be that person who is on one of these podcasts or interview or something that says, read the book, send the book. And I thought about it, and he really convinced me. And he said, well, when you pass, they're going to die, basically with you. Nobody will hear these stories. And you were searching all your life for answers. And he said, we really don't have any answers for people, but we have experiences. And if you write them down and you write them the way they happen, somebody can read that book and match them to theirs, or get ideas or get thoughts on their own experiences, and it'll help them. So that's why I did it. And I said, but you're coming with me. So the way we wrote it was kind of interesting. I would write a chapter, and then I would send it to him. And just like a conversation, he would write immediately what he thought, what it sparked in his memory or his thoughts or his story. And he'd write it down, and we just printed it like that. I didn't change anything he said. He didn't change anything I said. It was just very organic. And he's a funny guy, so it's kind of a little color commentary throughout. It's kind of interesting the way we did it. But within that book is, the thing I saw on the road with my mom in the Dismal Swamp in Virginia when I was like 11, that it was like, you could say it was a shapeshifter. You could say it was maybe one of these creatures that have come from from another dimension and just kind of showed up. Like, can you imagine being in another dimension and you just kind of fall on a portal or rip in, whatever you want to call it, and show up, and the next thing you're on a highway and just bam, get hit by a car or something. That's crazy, right? But these things happen. Where do cryptids come from? Where, we don't know. There's so many different things that happen that we just can't explain. And I really do think that there's plenty of dimensional, more intelligent ones that can cross over and leave. I have a running theory that Bigfoot's like that. Can come in and out, and some stay and some don't. Some go back and forth.
Would you say that ghosts are in the in-between?
I think there are things stuck in the in-between. But I don't think ghosts are. I think that's a whole different thing. I think that when people pass, sometimes they are stuck in the in-between and haven't become ghosts yet or come in and out. Because I think if they could get out, they'd never go back in.
Now, when you say in between, are you talking about in between dimensions or in between, like, the spirit world and our world?
I think it's both. I think there's a spot, and I've got many reasons to be thinking this, but I had a ghost come back, and it was myself and somebody else. We were trying to communicate with something else, and one came in to help, which happens often. And we were trying to talk to that one to get through to the other one that we were trying to help. This one didn't need any help. They were a spirit, coming back. We'd already crossed over. And she was coming in. She was very full of energy and everything. And we were saying, well, this guy needs to talk to, I'll just say Bob. Okay. He needs to talk to Bob. And she said, oh, I can go get him. He's down a couple levels. And right away, the way she said it, I can go down and get him. He's down a couple levels. I'm like, what does that mean? And I'm like, holy, I said, oh my God, don't go into hell to get the guy. And I started laughing. I'm like, no. We don't need to be drastic like that. Because the way she said it, that's what I was thinking. Because we're all taught that hell is below and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, which I really don't think it's as literal as that. Okay, I've come to learn a couple things along the way, and I think my theory is that it's very much like we were talking earlier about lower vibrational things are lower, and higher vibrational things are ascending a little bit. Do you see what I mean? As far as vibrations, you vibrate low and you ascend high.
Oh,
High
that
vibration.
kind of makes sense.
It makes sense. And that's how she explained it. She didn't get into a lot of detail, but she goes, "Oh, no, no, no." And she's almost like she was like I said, this spirit was full of energy. And she's just got, "Oh, no, he's just lower than me. It's no problem. I'll be right back." It's like, okay, And she went and got Bob, brought him up. And his energy was lower. It was like he spoke slower. And when he showed up, everything kind of dropped in the room a little bit. It made sense. So based on experiences like that and theories that go with it, I would say that it's kind of both. I think there's an in-between. And what I mean by in-between, I had a friend that was very into, I'm more of a Native American Christian Red Road kind of person, more spiritual in that base, because all of that has a lot. The core of it is all very the same, but it's also the same in a lot of pagan things and Wicca and things like that. A lot of these things are very misunderstood. It's about the person who's practicing, what their intent is, and where their core beliefs are too.
Yeah.
So it's nature based and energy based, and things like that. So she was a practicing voodoo. Actually, she was a descendant of Madame Laveau, who was a voodoo priestess, basically very famous in New Orleans. She practiced a little of that, a little pagan, a little Wicca, and a little Native American stuff. And we were working on a thing. Talk about a crazy story. You'll never believe this one. And I was there, and I have a problem believing it. But she tell you how many levels this thing has. She had a husband that she believed she had been through many lives with, and they could never get it right. They were always battling. One day, one time they were brothers, and this has opened up a whole other can of worms. You believe in reincarnation or not? I do. I have more proof for it than against it, so I'm going to sit there for now. But anyway, they had to keep repeating lifetimes till they kept getting these things right. And apparently, according to her, they had been through many. So her and I and a couple other people that she had there, we were trying to help this other individual who had basically had a curse on her. And it was a bloodline curse. It basically followed throughout bloodlines of her ancestors. I know, another subject. So I'm like, okay, I'm here. The reason I was there to do basically with sage and other things and, and turkey feathers and everything, I was to keep everything on the outside out and what was inside in. And that was my job and another person's job, to keep everything copacetic so she could do what she needed to do within it. And after this was over and I watched everything that went on with the young woman, was horrific what she went through. But when she came up, her whole personality was different. She, she looked like she'd been through the ringer, but her voice was different, very kind, whereas before she had been extremely erratic and just short and very gruff. And anyway, at the end of that night, we're sitting around and kind of drained and just trying to get her energy back and everything. And she's telling me about this, her husband, and how he had passed, and he had actually chased her around the house with an axe and cut off half of her foot. She's showing me her foot, and I'm thinking, okay, that's horrible. And she says, I'm glad I don't have to go through another lifetime with him. And I'm like, okay, I can understand that. And she said, I made sure of that. I'm like, okay, how? She goes, he's in the Unseelie Fae, and he's not getting out. And I'm like, what do you mean? She says, well, the in-between, a lot of religions call it purgatory. And she said, but purgatory is kind of more of a punishing name to put on something. Like you're bad, you'll be stuck in purgatory. That kind of connotation that's got that kind of edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, but, it can be that way, but you kind of put yourself there. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Like a ghost that gets stuck, I guess, She said, but he's there. And I'm like, well, that's kind of awful, man. Shouldn't he move on? She goes, well, if he moves on, or, we're going to go through this again. Our souls will be. And I'm like, okay, I get it. None of my business. I had to move. I'm out of this. I'm going home. So about 2-3 weeks later, we had to go back. The woman had to go through another thing, and I'm there. I'm just here for the good stuff, man. I'm just minding my own business. And she had basically, well, like I said, she had told me about the thing. Well, meanwhile, I got this phone, and it's got a voicemail. This one, flip phones were just coming out. And I'm getting these voicemails, and they're coming in like real far away sounding. This is sounding so crazy, but it's true. And they're so bad. And the energy that I'm getting off of these are just not good. But it's weird. It's like, it's so cold. It's so cold. Tell her to get me out. Get me out. It's so cold. It's so dark. Click off. And I was getting like 4 and 5 of these. And I'm like, what in the world? Well, I start putting it together. And it's just repeating the same thing. Sometimes it would just be, it's so cold, tell her, tell her, tell her, tell her. And then it would be a little bit more, it'd be like, I'm sorry, it's so cold, and then click. And I would just like multiple. I must have had about 18 of these in 2 weeks. And it's creepy. It's just creepy. So I go there, and we're doing this other thing, and I started thinking about it. I had my phone in my pocket. I pulled it out because it rang for something. And then I thought it clicked in my head, and I was like, oh, man. And I said, hey, man, listen to this. Does that sound familiar to you? She's like, and she, without missing a beat, she looks at me and goes, you tell him I'm not getting him out. He's staying right where he is. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm stuck in the middle of something I don't want to be in the middle of,
Yeah.
This went on, and I said, he's contacting me because he knows I have compassion for any spirit or ghost or, human essence that's stuck anywhere. And he knows I'm going to work on you until you try to get him out. And I said, that's why it's happening. He's connected to that energy, and he's going to keep doing this until we went back and forth. I said, it's none of my business, but that's a human being, man. You got to get him out. So she went in and got him. And I don't even want to tell your listeners what she did. But
what'd she do?
She got him out of the unseelie fae, but she gave him a choice. She bound him, and she put him in a box and threw him in the river.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't that sound strange? But I was there. I mean, I didn't know I was there for, I was there for something else. But me and 4 other people watched her go in. She went in, she reached in. I've got pictures of it. You can see her whole top of her body just disappeared, and then she was gone. And then she comes back out, and she's got this bottle. And then she said that she gave him a choice because she did not want to go around another lifetime with him. And that's like way out of my league. I mean, I don't understand, but I know enough to go, I see what I'm seeing. I don't understand all of it, but I've known many of people that have gone in the unseelie fae or the in-between and helped people out and cross into the light. And I know several people that I trust and been there in different ways. And I think that's an awful thing for somebody to be stuck in that darkness. I've known mediums and remote viewers and people that have gone in to help a couple of my loved ones, personal cases, that I said, you got to go in and tell him, man, we got to get him unconfused. He's got to get past the angry. We got to cross him. And I'm not stopping till he's crossed and he makes the conscious decision to walk into that light. And I will not give up until it happens. And they stuck with me. It's crazy. But you see, in like if you think about it, it's not a game, and like you could. It's like, again, like I said, you mentioned the Ouija board earlier. It's your intent, to what she had going on with her husband. I wouldn't want to go around again to get my foot cut off again or have some other kind of fight. I mean, I believe that we have soul families and we can go through several lifetimes with them until we learn from each other through experiences and things like that. I do believe we have that soul family. And then free will. You can choose not to come back and do it, or you can choose to stay where you are. You're cool with the level you're on. You don't need to ascend higher or learn more. I think you have a free will.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's possible that we are our kid's kid, right?
oh yeah, and multiple. I mean, how many stories have you heard about 3-year-olds that can tell you about falling in a plane, dying in a plane crash in World War II, and describe the inside and where they were and what was going on and who they were fighting. When you look up and find out that the guy really existed, and his plane did go down. Reincarnation stories. I absolutely believe in that. But my thing is this: it's not up to us whether you're a homeowner and Sally died in the bed upstairs 100 years ago, and isn't she cute, and we bought her a doll. I think that's great, because that person has tried to find a way to live with the situation they're in. But what about the ghost? Does the ghost have a choice here? I had you know what I mean? It's a compassion, and I
Yeah.
think it
Now,
stems back.
you talk about. Let me. I gotta interrupt you. You talked about reincarnation for a second. Do you think that reincarnation can happen to a ghost that's stuck, or does he have to be unstuck to reincarnate?
It's a good question. I don't know, because I've heard of something that's just fascinating to me, and I'm trying to learn about it. Fragmented souls, where, okay, imagine an ocean, okay,
Okay.
and you take a bucket, and you take a bucket of the water out of the ocean, and then you take a handful of that water out of the bucket and you splash it in different directions. Is the water droplets that you splashed from the bucket that came out of the ocean any less a part of that ocean, or is it just in a different form now? And how much is it of a part of that ocean is it still? Think of souls that way. Are we all part of one big energy? All those things that you hear is like we're all really one, we're all part. I am in at the closer I get, the more I study this, I'm really starting to believe that. So what if you take one of those droplets and you cut it in half? It's still part of that soul. It's still part of all the lifetimes and all the things that soul has been through. Yet that one piece has a choice. So could one person, a fragmented soul, be partly here and part over there? I've heard those cases, yes. I don't know that it would reincarnate as a fragment. I don't know. That's way out of my league. I wouldn't even venture a guess on that.
So you
But
think that the soul can be split into different pieces?
I think it's possible, yeah.
Oh, that's scary to think about.
Well, if you do, but if you think about it as far as the ocean thing, um, okay, look at it this way, something a little less scary. Um, okay, if you're born again, I'm no expert, and if you got a reincarnation therapist or somebody in to explain this,
Yeah,
if
we
you
have we
yeah, much better job than I could ever do. But if you think about it, when you're born, if this is true, okay, and you're born and you forget everything your soul's been through before, because it's, what a cheat that would be if you had all those memories, right? You're going to come through, if you're coming in here to learn, you learn better on a clean slate, right? So you come through and you go through all your life experiences, and then you pass and your soul goes over, and say, nothing happens. You go right through the light and down the, whatever the runway is, and boom, into your whatever's on the other side. And then you get there and you get all the memories back. Okay. Through all the lifetimes. Okay. Well, in that lifetime, I learned how not to be a jerk. And, I was killed, so I know what the loss is and what it feels like for pain. I've learned so many things through all these lifetimes, Now you're in this, whatever this ascended being that your soul's gone to, and you can understand it all better. Maybe that's why they can't tell us anything when they come back. Because I'm telling you, when they come back and they're trying to help us get another one over or something like that, they won't tell you everything. You know, all those things where we're told we're judged, and some being comes in and judges us and says you were terrible and this was awful, you did this, and you're bad, bad, bad. I don't think that happens. I think we judge ourselves.
Yeah, I said the same thing. I think it was an episode or two ago that I think who's better to judge us than ourselves.
Right. I had no idea I had that effect on that person. I should have never done that. Look at the pain they went through. I think we have to feel the pain we caused, and probably feel the happiness we're a part of too. Another great movie. Actually, the book is even better. It's called Five People We Meet in Heaven. And when he passes, um, he goes through and he meets all these people, and he's looking at these people and go, wait, I don't even remember you. Oh, hold on a minute. And then his memory is sparked, and he had like 5 minutes with this person, or 10 minutes. It made such an impact on that person that person had to come back and tell him that, you changed everything for me. You were kind. You were this. You gave me, and we realize how much our life means to others, and how good it can be and how bad it can be as well. I know a gentleman that's died 3 times, and clinically dead. Crossed over, had his near-death experience or whatever, and each time he has gone through that self-judgment thing, he looked back and he had been in war, and he had been a combat soldier, and you think that you would, the things that he would regret doing, you're taking another life and stuff like that. And that did absolutely have an impact on him, because he had to go through what he had to feel, what that person went through, because he caused it. And even though he was a soldier, and he had to go through that pain. But he said the worst thing that he ever went through was one night he was going to a party, and he was in a hurry, and he hit a dog. And he had a split second where he could have gone back and helped that dog, or he could have kept going. And he talked himself into not going back. And the pain that dog went through. But he caused that. He said that was the hardest thing. And I was like, that made such an impact on me. And after the third time, he still kept going. He's like, he still wasn't living his life right and being a decent human being. And the third time, it was a total different experience to him. And he was like, let me tell you something. You experienced everything. Every fight, every hug, every kiss, everything. Every time you stub your toe, every time you cause somebody to stub your toe, their toe. And he says now he goes around and hugs everybody. And and when they laugh at him and go, man, you're just a hugger. You hug me. He goes, I'm not hugging you. I'm hugging me. Because when I die again, I'm going to need those hugs on the other side. I'm going to go this time when I go through that, I'm going to get a lot of hugs back. That makes the most beautiful sense to me.
So you're saying every time we stub our toe, we're going to experience it again in the afterlife?
I think more every time we cause somebody else to be harmed. I think we go through that more.
I don't want to. I've stubbed my toe a lot.
But you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
just the words I chose to. I mean, but think about that. Now he hugs everybody, and hugs a lot, because he's hugging himself. When he gets over there, he's going to get those hugs back and experience that joy. I think that's an awesome way to look at life. I mean, if all this is true, that's why my book is called We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife, because the afterlife is kind of the last frontier. You can say it's Antarctica, or you can say it's space, or is it really? Because nobody really knows what happens when you go over there. And is it similar for everybody, or is it a lot and a little bit of whatever happens to our energy, because you think of a water bottle. Okay, there's this water in this bottle. I can beat this bottle up and everything else. The water inside is just fine. You can beat the bottle till the water comes out. The water's on the ground, and eventually, if it's in the sun, it's going to dissipate, change into vapor, and go off into the ether.
Yeah.
It's still there, and I think that's a little bit about what we are. And then the ghosts that I've had the opportunity to speak with, like I said, my first experience was that one soldier. Eventually, we found out that, when we saw the uniform and be able to put it together, he was a Revolutionary War soldier. And I think he was hidden in that house. We found a hidden room in that house. And
Are you talking about Gettysburg or?
no, no, no. This was in New Jersey during the Revolutionary War. Out, a lot of battles happened out where we lived.
Okay.
And I think that they probably hid him. That was the feeling I was getting anyway. He was scared. He didn't want to be found, And then he woke up, didn't know where he was, or whatever you want to call it, and was trying to get help. And I carried that with me all my life. I couldn't help that ghost, you know. I still wonder where he is. The house is now destroyed. It's development now, and I can't tell you how many times I wanted to go and knock on the doors. Go, hey, y'all got any ghosts here? You got any cabins? Any knockings going on? Because I don't know if he's still there. I hope he got rescued or got help. Kindness or whatever. Maybe his spirit guides finally came and got him. Maybe a loved one. I don't know, but I've been trying to help them ever since. And I look at them as, these are human beings. If it was somebody I cared about that was stuck here or stuck in another plane, I would do everything I could in my power to help them, and that's what I've been trying to do. My experiences just are just like anybody's experiences through anything. The more experience that you have, the more you learn. This just happens to be a subject that we can't quite put our finger on that answer. And the wilderness of the afterlife, it means like, we're children. Does it mean we're at the age of children? No, the innocence, the not knowing, because that's kind of what we are. And like I said, how not to be a ghost. Let all that stuff go. Let all your earthly burdens go. Don't leave any regrets if you can. You love somebody, you had a fight with somebody, a friend or a family member. Let them know, man, that you care. Get it out now, because that seems to be the message that the dead are dying to tell us. Live your life, be the best person you can be. What you do counts,
Yeah.
And it affects others, and it definitely affects you. You don't want to get stuck in that mess, and people are given abilities here. I think we all have an intuition. We all have that gut instinct. I think we talk ourselves out of it,
Yeah.
and I know some great people that have really exercised theirs to just wondrous abilities. And I think we're really seeing a lot coming around in the paranormal now, where a lot of the heart's coming back into it. We've seemed to meld the tech and, all of the information. We're starting to get so much of it now. And then now we're starting to put the heart back into it, the sensitivity and the feeling and the intuition and the abilities and stuff in it too, and combining all of it. And I think it's a really great time to be in this. I've seen 50 years. I've seen it change. I've seen it go from nobody wants to talk about it to nobody can stop talking about it.
So what about shadow people? Do you think that those are ghosts?
I think some of them are, yes. I think some of them are dimensional beings. I think some of them have an agenda. I think that some of them, of the ones that with the agenda, are absolutely evil based, to the point where they, like I mentioned on the battlefields, the ones that were like what I call energy vampires.
Uh-huh.
They suck your energy, from your fear, and things like that. And some of them are calculating enough to make you hurt yourself and do things that you wouldn't want to do, and just, almost like a demonic kind of thing, that you would think like that. But I think there's other things out there. Everybody keeps saying demonic. I think there's many things out there that aren't demons, but are ancient and have been here before we ever got here, and probably be here after. There's so many different things out there. And either they're a human being that is stuck or doing whatever, or it's something that's here for something else. Because if you think about it, everything lives off of something, and something that lives on somebody else's fear energy and adrenaline and things like that. That can't be a good thing because it's got to hurt something to live, to exist.
Yeah.
And if it's been going around and doing that for centuries, what chance do you have up against it? Your life force. So you got to go against it with good, dark to light, dark to light.
Yeah.
I mean, it
The
makes
Great
sense.
Awakening is coming, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What
And
do you think
a lot
about?
of people just,
I'm sorry. What do you think about our consciousness and the evolution of our consciousness? You think that has a lot to do with what's going on? Like are we going to be able to expand our consciousness into a different way of seeing things and being and you know what I'm saying?
yeah, that's a big question. But here's the thing: it's very hard for people, some people, to see outside of their own square foot of real estate. Everybody's vantage point is, of course, how they see things and how it affects them, right? When you start reaching past that, okay, how can I make that person's day better? How can I make that person's life better? That's reaching out. And there's plenty of people who do that. And there's plenty of people that actually get through their own fears and their own um, uh, depression or whatever it might be by helping others. That's their life force. And I think those people are way ahead of the curve. But if everybody is going to be just, me, and we're in that time of instant gratification, and we stopped writing letters, we stopped talking eye to eye, everything is text, everything. Then it started going from text to shorthand to pretty soon. I think if we're not careful, we're going to stop communicating um, with sincerity, if you know what I mean,
Yeah.
face face to face. And that's pushing us back into that, square foot of real estate. We might cover it up because we have so many things at our hands that we can create any kind of world we want in one room, you know. But I think we need to get back outside, get into nature, and connect back into the earth and the earth energy, like grounding. I mean, a lot of people talk about grounding and meditation and things like that. Get barefoot, go walk in the grass, go feed some, go watch the birds. The animals really got it down pat. If you notice something, the animals that are in the wild and in your own backyard, they've changed everything they had to do to survive without without so much as really affecting us. They've conformed and changed and um, got smaller and smaller in their little spot, but they're still out there existing. The squirrels, the birds. I mean, today I had a chipmunk, a rabbit, three ducks, I don't know how many different kinds of birds, all eating together. They're chill, you know, and they're existing fine. And all this is going on around them, all this turmoil and everything else is going on around them. And they're just going on about their lives, chilling out, eating, and nothing's hurting them in the yard and in the woods behind me. They're good to go. But they've learned a kindness and to get along, even though they're so different. And I think we could learn a lot from that
So
because we're really all kind of the same. Just like we said with ghosts, they've got those human qualities, and then they add in their own characteristics, and that's where we start to spin off.
so what advice would you give somebody who is dying?
Mm, that's a rough one. I've had people die in front of me, and I held their hands and I talked to them more often than I'd like to admit, and I always tell them, you know, uh, you're loved and you're cared about. And it's like that song. I know it sounds corny, but what was that song in the Titanic? My heart, you're in my heart will go on.
Yeah.
It's the memory. It's the memory of that person is alive, and they're people. a century ago would think about my legacy. What am I leaving behind? I'm, leaving a son and my business, and I'm leaving the business of my son, and I've got my children, and what I built. But really, your legacy is really who you were and what you did with the time you had here. Some people have very little time, but I try to tell them too that you're going to be all right on the other side. And I think it's very interesting in most of the cases that I've been involved with that was a couple of days before, or maybe hours before, they start talking, or they can see others coming to visit in the room. And everybody always says it's dementia. She's losing her mind. They're losing their mind. They're not seeing anything. And when I was a little kid, I was probably about 6, and my grandpa was in the nursing home, and he had had a stroke. And he was talking to people in the room. And everybody in the room, my mom and her sisters, and my grandmother and everything, was like, "Oh, it's sad. He's lost his mind. He's talking to people aren't there." And I'm this little 6-year-old girl, and I'm like, "Yeah, they are. They're right there. He's talking to somebody in the room, and they're here. They've just come to help him over."
Yeah,
And
a friend of mine was dying, and he was seeing his cat that had died years before.
and animals come too. And many people will tell you animals don't have a soul and animals don't cross like that and all that. That's a bunch of garbage. That's a bunch of garbage. I can tell you that it's much easier for them to cross because they don't have all these earthly burdens and all these things. So if, like I said, with the animals in the yard and thing, I said, no, it sounds so trite and so trivial in this craziness that we're in right now and everything. But, it, if we could think a little bit like that, just let go a little bit and go, you know what? Maybe they do have the answer, because very rarely do I ever see an animal that's stuck and can't go back and forth. We had a cat not too long ago pass, and he had a stroke, and then like a mini stroke, and he wasn't real good with his paw. He had had some arthritis and stuff. We did, of course, everything we could, and he was really my husband's cat. And every night he would jump up on the bed, and he would always curl in his legs that were bent, in that little space there. And he did it every night. Well, he passed, and I had to take him because my husband couldn't do it. And I sat with him. I played music, and we actually lit a candle, and we held him. My friend and I, we held him. We sang him over, and he passed because he had had a stroke. There was nothing they could do, and he was in a lot of pain at that point in time. He couldn't even move. Well, I told him, I said, now you go right over. Don't stay for us. We're going to be all right. And I just talk matter of factly like that. So that night, I could always tell it was him and not one of the other cats when he jumped on the bed. Not because it was just routine, but he did a step limp, and then the back feet would come. Step limp, and the back feet would come. And it was just a different kind of stepping than just the strut of a cat. So that night I'm there and I'm paying attention. I was reading a book or something, and all of a sudden I feel it. And I thought it was one of the other cats coming up on the bed. And I felt the regular strut of a cat who had all 4 paws working. And I turn and look, and there's nothing there. And I see the blankets just move just a little bit. And I said, okay, tonight you can stay. I said, but I don't want you to stay back for us. I said, I'm glad you're better, baby. You already been there and crossed over and came back for us to make us feel better. Thank you for that. But you can't, you don't get to stay. You got to go back to where you're supposed to be. And it was just that kind of a thing.
Yeah, cats are pretty interesting animals.
Well, they care about us. I mean, the dogs and cats and everything else. Grief, when we have, everybody grieves in different ways, but when somebody passes, they usually care more about us than themselves, especially pets. And they always come back and they worry about us, And I just think that they're so much easier for them to go, and like they don't have all that earthly stuff holding them down. But they'll come back because they know we're hurting, and they want to make sure we're okay. And I think that's beautiful. And I think a lot of people can do that too. You hear multiple times where, someone will, they don't even know that their loved one or their friend or whatever has been in an accident or hurt. And then they see that person comes often when they're asleep or right before sleep and just, I'm fine, I'm okay, I love you. And then poof, gone. And then they get the phone call that their loved one has passed. So many times.
Yeah.
And it's just part of this wondrous subject, from the paranormal to the supernatural to the uncanny and the unexplained. It's just the big mystery of life and what's on the other side. And like I said, what the dead seem to be dying to tell us is just be the best you can be. It counts somewhere along the line, whether it's on ourself or just what we learned, how to get through struggles, how to get through the bad times as well as the good, and what we do with it. It seems to be the thing.
Yeah, and that's a good place for us to wrap it up, I suppose. We're gonna have to get you back on because I still have a ton of questions.
Sure.
Where would everybody find you?
Okay, well, I have Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal podcast, and that's on YouTube. Hey, definitely, please come in there and subscribe. It's a new channel. I just put it up recently, so we're just trying to get up there. I've got all my episodes on there, so you can go through and you talk to people that know a lot more than I do. Because, like I said, after 50 years, I'm still learning. But that's there. I'm on Facebook, on Paranormal. It's Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal podcast Gatekeepers. Make sure you get on the Gatekeepers one, because that's where all the activity is. The book is on Amazon. It's in Kindle, and it's on in paperback. It's fantastic. I had a fantastic artist do the cover. That's me on the cover with like people I've met behind me and tried to help. And the cat's in there too. He's up on the gate. So that's on Amazon. I've also on my second book, and this one is kind of funny. Steve Stockton again. His birthday is Halloween. So last year for Halloween, he was doing on his podcast, which is 13 Past Midnight on YouTube. He was doing a lot of his stories, just narrating. So he'll narrate stories that he's heard before. He does a lot of missing persons and things like that, but mostly ghost stories, the uncanny, cryptid, and just great urban legends. It's a fantastic channel. So he was doing a thing for Halloween, 31 days of Halloween. So he was putting out a short podcast every day, and he was kind of getting a little daunted there by the second week. And I said, I'm going to give him a birthday present. I said, I'm going to write him a ghost story. So I wrote him a ghost story, and in 20 minutes, I wrote a ghost story on like a little bit of a past experience mixed in with just some fiction, had a good time doing it. And then I narrated it, and I said it to him. I said, happy birthday. Here's an episode for you. Pop that up. And he loved it, and his listeners loved it. And they said, man, these characters, I'd like to hear more of them. So he challenged me. He said, what if you wrote a story and with these characters, it continue continue on with it, but I want you to put in every Halloween symbol and Halloween thing that you can throw in there. And we joked about it, and I said, man, kind of like a Scooby-Doo episode or something with just all this stuff, bats and rats and black cats and just ghosts and cryptids and Bigfoot and Dogman and all kinds of stuff. And you know what? It turned out pretty good, because this is the weird thing that happened. I sat down, and the first chapter, I probably wrote it in 4 hours. When I narrated it, because I did all the voices and everything else, I narrated it, and I'm reading it, and I'm going, did I write that? I had no intention for these characters to do the things that they were doing. It was almost like the characters wrote this book themselves. I'm not joking. And I really think that there was some spirits in the room that I got the characters from, or they were helping it along, or in some
And this
cases.
book is your second book, or your
It's the second one.
Is that out yet?
It's not out yet, because we kind of did it backwards, because Steve, like I said, Steve was the one who challenged me, and I sent the first chapter, and he put it up on his channel, and then I wrote the second one, and again and again and again, and now we're to 6 parts of it. And since it's narrated already, it's like an audio book. It's a novel, and then now we're going to take it and put it into a book, and then he's going to take it and he's going to write a screenplay, and he's got a couple of people that are interested in maybe making a movie out of it.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Well, again, we thank you very much for coming on. We certainly appreciate your time. Hope you have a great night.
It was a gas, and we didn't even, like I said, didn't even scratch the surface. Like again, I said, I'm not an expert. I've had multiple experiences, but I'm still learning right along with everybody else. It's an amazing subject, and it's just do your best to try not to be a ghost, I guess.
All right, sounds awesome. We'll be right back on Conflict Radio right after this. Welcome back to Conflict Radio. I hope you enjoyed our spooky showtime. We're going to try to get something put together for Halloween. We're going to look at maybe getting a few different guests to have on for a special Halloween show on ghosts and goblins and all kinds of scary Halloween stories that we can do on Halloween night. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Make sure to check out our website for the photo we were talking about in the podcast. You can find that at www.conflictradio.net. You can also find us on YouTube if you search the Conflict Radio Network. We're also available on iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, podcasts, all the normal podcast catchers. Until next time, batten down the hatches and be safe.